now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Hey, good morning, CMR Land.
Happy Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. It is nice that it's Tuesday. Yesterday felt kind of weird because it didn't feel like a Monday.
Oh, well, we were here doing our show, so it felt like a Monday to us.
Oh, wow. Were you?
Yeah, we did our show. We had a lot to talk about.
Never sleeps.
What were you talking about?
We talked about everything that happened over the weekend. So, Mondays are Rewind Mondays. So we talked about the COVID death. We talked about a few court cases. Sometimes it's easy to get those out of the way on a Monday.
And was your normal audience there, or was it less?
Yeah, I mean, we had a good crowd, 280 something people, close to 300 we peaked at. Yeah. So it was good.
Very cool.
Yeah, people enjoy it. Some people, I think, always like to have something to do on a holiday Monday. So a lot of people seem to enjoy tuning in. So we'll make sure that we're there.
And did you at least get to enjoy the weekend?
Sorry, I was just pulling my YouTube link, so I had to mute myself. Yeah, well, we have an interesting development in my household.
What's happening?
We got a COVID positive person.
No way.
Yep.
Who?
It ain't me. It's my husband.
Oh,
really?
So
yes. I know the irony of it is he doesn't go anywhere. He doesn't do anything.
Seriously.
How'd he get it?
Unvaccinated coworker who sits right next to him.
Really?
Yeah.
And did you say where he works?
No, I won't say.
I'm surprised that I know that company is on the forefront of COVID policies, and I'm surprised that they allowed that to happen.
Apparently, a lot of people were surprised that this person wasn't vaccinated. So I don't know.
Maybe they were like,
maybe
they Aaron Rodgers.
I'm pretty sure that company requires all their employees to be vaccinated.
So they Aaron
probably
Rodgers.
The frontline ones. I don't know. I know that they were encouraging people to do it for sure.
Huh.
But yeah, somehow somebody wasn't.
Well, that stinks.
Yeah.
So what are you doing there in your house?
I got tested yesterday. You know, the policy is we could just lateral flow test.
Yes.
And our daughter could go to school and all that kind of stuff, but we decided not to take that chance really. So I actually went to the PCR test yesterday.
Okay.
And so
you're waiting for the results, or did you get them back?
No, I actually got my results within a couple hours. They were not that busy yesterday.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I'm negative.
All right. So hold on one second. We might revisit that on the air if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, here we go.
I'm gonna mute us again. One quick second.
Big news. I have some important news for you. Interesting news.
It's Blake and Aaron's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
K-Man's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Good morning, Sandy. How are you?
Good morning, Blake and Aaron, and everybody out in Radio Land. Good morning. Good morning. I'm good.
Yeah.
Morning.
How was the weekend?
Eventful.
It was eventful. Yes. Well, this is why you're on our show. We want to hear all about it. What was eventful?
Well, we now have a COVID positive individual in our household.
What?
Yeah. So, my husband called the flu hotline on, when was that? On Saturday, because he wasn't feeling well and he had a COVID positive unvaccinated coworker who was in very close proximity. And mind you, he wears a mask at work all the time.
And everybody does, though, even the coworker.
And he has a filter on and everything, and
it's just, you touch one thing in the bathroom, or you're eating, you touch something, and then you touch your eye, you touch your nose,
Yeah, it's more airborne than anything else. So I guess it's hard to really filter that air.
Aaron just said that to me.
He's like, let me put on some hand sanitizer while we talk about it. Yeah, so it's really hard to filter that air. Most offices you can't open a window anymore.
Yeah,
so that's the world that we live in.
So was this unvaccinated person asymptomatic, or were they not feeling well?
I really didn't ask too many questions because I have a policy of not getting into my husband's work affairs.
Yeah,
but I believe
all the other questions.
I believe for them to have become aware of it, there were some symptoms that presented itself. So yes,
I mean, you can be asymptomatic and not know, and you're still spraying it.
So. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about COVID, right? You don't always have symptoms.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? What are you doing in your household? How do you manage that?
Well, it took us a minute to get him tested. We spent 2.5 hours at the HSA on Saturday unsuccessfully. There was only 2 people in the waiting room, and that was a wash. So it wasn't until on Sunday that he got his positive results. So I went in yesterday and got PCR tested, and I am negative as of now. And so it's very, very difficult when you have younger children to try to tell them, don't go near daddy, don't touch this, don't touch that. They don't quite understand. Yeah. So doing a lot of air circulation, opening all the doors and stuff like that as much as possible. to kind of let in some fresh air, because that was the number one recommendation when we had one of our Spotlight series epidemiologists on. He's like, if you can get fresh air in, that's exactly what you want to do. So we've been doing that. And
you've got him in a plastic bubble.
I wish I could have him in more of a plastic bubble, but it is a little bit challenging. So I am going around and spraying everything with Lysol, like actually trying to disinfect the air itself with some industrial strength Lysol that they use in hospitals.
That's a hard situation.
Yeah, you're gonna have to just
everywhere.
You know,
I'm gonna stay very close to home. I mean, technically, I could lateral flow every single day and continue about my business. My daughter could lateral flow every single day, but for the next couple of days, which is when we would probably be more likely to turn out positive, we're gonna just
lie low.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, look, it's you guys might be able to be fine. I know other people that have been quarantining with a positive and no one else caught it. So
that's great.
Obviously, vaccinations are great and they work.
Do we know if the vaccination clinics are open today? I know they were scheduled.
Yes, I received a schedule in the wee hours of the morning.
All right.
So we're going to post that up. But today is the 16th. They're at Camana Bay from 12:30 until 4 p.m. and then 5:30 until 7:30.
At Camana Bay.
Canela Court, second floor, which is adjacent to the observation tower.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. And tomorrow they're actually going to be in the Sister Islands as well as the Bottomtown Public Beach.
Okay. Well, fresh vaccines.
Yeah.
Free for all.
Free for all. Yes. Go get them. And of course, over the weekend, we had a classification of a COVID-related death.
Right.
Which, a lot of people are saying, oh, it's not COVID-related, but, the guy had COVID. I mean, no one is saying that COVID killed him. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's COVID-related.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I think, unfortunately, if he was even vaccinated, it doesn't sound like it.
Well, and that is
typical. He wasn't.
He wasn't. But even if he was, it sounds like he had health issues. And
the classification is something that the medical professionals deal with. It's not a political decision like a lot of people thought that the premier made this classification up. And that's not his call at all. He has to report what the medical officials.
You know what? It's extremely common for most of the COVID related deaths is that they are COVID related. It's people with underlying health conditions.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone that's not known that. This is like when people say, vaccines don't work. You can still catch it. COVID. It's like, no one's ever said that. Where are these people making up all this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I know. They think they've got the inside track they've got the inside track and a secret that everybody knows about.
It's like their brains don't work or something. They just can't take in information and process it. I don't know.
Yeah. So that's been made a very big deal of, that he is COVID related and it didn't really kill him. And it was just like, go and look at how the classifications work. Like the World Health Organization has a lot of guidance.
It's the same around the world. It's not.
It's nothing.
Not any different here.
Yeah.
So
I hear it's sad to hear, by the way. Very, very sad to hear, by the way.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, and then people seem to get insulted that someone says it was COVID related, as though that's like a, evil thing to say about someone.
But it's not.
Again, yeah. I mean, it's just, he had COVID, at the time of his death. And it probably listed.
He was 73-year-old male.
Had sepsis, had been in and out of the hospital, had been really ill for quite some time. So,
somebody's messaging there wanted to know if your husband was vaccinated.
Absolutely. He actually got vaccinated before I did.
Yeah.
Because he was like, I'm not taking any chances. We got a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So by the time she would have been 4, but he was not vaccine hesitant at all. And, everybody I think knows he's from Jamaica, and unfortunately our Caribbean neighbors by and large are very vaccine hesitant. I don't even know if they've reached 15% of their population being vaccinated yet. And this is going to present a problem for them when they want to come to the Cayman Islands, because they will be subjected to quarantining even after the 20th. And it was kind of interesting that people, are like, oh, well, I'm on the 20th, my nephew's coming from Jamaica. What can he expect? And I said, well, he can expect to be quarantined.
Yeah. Last I checked, Jamaica was at 4% vaccination.
16%.
16 now?
Yeah.
16%.
Yeah. So that's considered very, very low.
480,000
right.
fully vaccinated.
So part of the new rules for the 20th on Saturday is that if you're coming from a country less than 60% vaccinated, you have to quarantine. Is that correct?
That's correct. So it's securely verified. There's two people who do not have to quarantine. Securely verified, fully vaccinated travelers, non-securely verified, fully vaccinated travelers traveling from a country with a vaccination rate above 60%. Okay, and remember, you still have to apply to travel Cayman.
That's what
with your documents, and there's a whole process. I think we'll spend some time kind of going through that today as well. There is a whole process where you still have to be pre-approved. So make sure that you know what the requirements are before traveling to the jurisdiction.
Yeah, because I have my mom and her husband coming out in like a month. And so now that those are out, now hopefully they can, but they've got their QR codes. They're coming from the States. So it's,
Yeah, we don't need the QR code
now.
anymore.
But they verified, just in case someone asks.
Yeah.
It's just less hassle sometimes.
Donald just commented on your Chiron there and said continue to stay positive, but I don't know if that's the right I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah,
it's not the right.
Somebody else said that to me yesterday. They're like, "Oh, stay positive,ve," and I said, "Bad choice of words."
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay negative, not positive.
That's the new phrase for.
Yeah, stay negative.
All right. Well, thanks for the headlines this morning. And you can catch Sandy's show live now on YouTube and also Facebook. We'll see you tomorrow, okay?
All right, great, guys. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, folks. Good morning to all of you. We got 244 people already online. Let me say good morning to everyone who takes a moment to say good morning, because I know that you don't have to. So, that's nice. We have, let me see here now. We've got Odine, Alice, good morning. Irvelyn is here. Diamond Princess Sapphire's here. Christina, thank you so much for tuning in. Courtney is joining us. Larry from New York. Miss Sue has got it locked. She's from Savannah. Tracy from West Bay. Blissful Powell, good morning. Wee Wee's always got it locked. Alice is here. Yes, honey child, thanks very much. He's symptomatic. He's got a little bit of it just feels like a little bit of like a head cold, light fever, nothing major. He's relatively healthy, no comorbidities or anything. He's not overweight. He doesn't have diabetes. He's not, he's doing good. So I think he just needs some R&R and taking things for the symptoms that he does have. So yes, I wasn't entirely surprised though, because like I said, he does wear his mask at work, like all day long. He is very, very diligent about that. And for people who say, oh, it can't be done, he's a perfect example of how it can be done. And his mask actually has a filter in it. But still, I'm telling you all that this COVID thing is very, very transmissible. And so he is on Saturday, he wasn't really feeling well on Saturday. And I said, you know what, call the flu hotline, ask them for advice. I think they were kind of like, it was later in the day. So it was like, oh, you can run to one clinic and then come to find out that location was closed. And so we ended up going to the HSA. He was not able to actually see anyone at the HSA because they took over 2 hours. And because he wasn't feeling well after 2 hours, he's like, you got to be kidding me. I'm not going to wait here for another 2 hours and not see anyone. And literally there was like one other person in the ER who came 20 minutes before him. And they were sitting there waiting for 2.5 hours. I'm going to have a recommendation for the HSA here in a minute, but let me finish my good morning greetings. So buenos dias to Elizabeth. Richie is here. Good morning. Sue says, what a mess. Lizette, good morning. Good morning. Felicia. Yes, thank you so much. We're going to hunker down. Good morning to Miss Gina. Richie, we appreciate that. I'm here, Blair. He was double. Why am I out of focus all of a sudden? The camera like switched to the background. Yeah, he was actually double vaccinated, believe it or not, folks. He was fully vaccinated. So Alba, and he's not in a high risk category, like he doesn't have any pre-existing conditions or anything like that we're aware of. So buenos dias to Miss Alba. ¿Cómo estás? Estoy bien. Damien says magandang umaga. I'm assuming that is good morning in Tagalog. Thank you so much, Donald, Miss Joy, Olivia's here, Carol. We appreciate that. They need to stop locking people in until they have a negative PCR test and science proves you're not infectious after 10 days. Yes, that 10-day window is significant. Morning to Carmelie. Miss Morna is here. Sonia, thank you so much for joining. Miss Anne Marie, Francis, Rita, buenos dias. Louis, it's a chilly 27. Ooh, that's beyond chilly. 27 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that the feel like temperature, or is it 27 plus it's windy, which means it feels like the teens? Ooh, that's cold. Buenos dias to Senora Sheila. Peterkin, good morning. Good morning to Marshall, joining us from North Carolina. Lizette says COVID is everywhere. Unfortunately, it's easy to transmit. Yes. Mitzi, Vernita, Soka says the mask with filters are actually not recommended. Well, I know he definitely wears a mask all day long. It's actually not that filter that you think about. I think you mean the one with the little hole thing on the side. No, he's wearing it's a full covered mask. There's no hole, but within the mask itself, it has a built-in like a filter cup, and in there's a I want to say it's like some kind of spongy material or something that's like a filter. So I don't think it's the same one. I know which ones you're talking about that have that little. It almost looks like a valve. That's not what he wears. Aliano, good morning. Darius is here. How about the big shout out, you YouTube folks? There's over 50 of you there. The YouTubers kind of sit back and just listen. Y'all can say hi too. Siobhan, thank you so much. Yes, we're wishing him a speedy recovery. Like I said, it is a little bit challenging with a 5-year-old to be like, Daddy's COVID positive. Don't touch him. Don't go near him. She's like, oh, I want a hug. I'm like, So every morning as I get up, now the windows we got a couple sliding glass doors wide open, air out the place. I wish I could open the front door too, but we don't have anything like a screen or anything at the front door. So unfortunately, y'all know me and flies are no friends. So I can't really do that. But yeah, I went yesterday at Health City and got tested. To be honest, over the weekend, we were trying to figure out a couple of different testing options, and they were legit the easiest ones. No appointment required. I tried to use the appointment system for Doctor's Hospital, and that never worked out for me. So I got a little bit frustrated with that, and I just went to Health City's Camana Bay location. And I must say that yesterday, they were not really that busy at all. On Saturday, there's a little bit more of a wait. But yesterday, I walked in, there's one other lady there. Her husband was there with the baby, and she got processed, and I filled out my paperwork, and I got processed really, really quickly. The lady who administered my test, I tell you what, though, I think she was trying to double check my intellectual capacity with like getting a brain sample, because she was really up in there and twirling around. I was like, But, I just grinned and bare it as much as I could. Thank God I don't have to do that every week. For those of you who are doing that every week instead of getting vaccinated, you are one incredibly brave person, because a weekly COVID test is not fun. And, there's a lot of professionals, flight attendants and pilots and stuff like that, who have to do it on a weekly basis. It's not a fun test. But it is still the most accurate test. Somebody was asking me about the saliva test or something like that, if someone here was going to be doing that. And I don't have any information that anybody is. In fact, I checked, and I'm told that that's not going to be happening. So, we do have the PCR, the lateral flow test now, which are not as invasive. And you can certainly do the lateral flow test at home. So there's the benefit of that. But out of an abundance of caution, yesterday I figured, let me just go and do the PCR test to kind of get a baseline of where I was at as of yesterday. Now, I must say, I did get my result extremely quickly. Within just a matter of hours, I had my result on my phone. So that was easy process. And so negative so far. But, we know that people, the more time you spend in that environment, entirely possible that you could pick it up. Now, the good news is I'm not sleeping in the same bed with my husband. I'll take that to the gossip mill. But I sleep with my daughter because she's not yet comfortable enough sleeping by herself. She's still like, she promised me when she's 5. She's like, when I turn 5, I'll be able to do it. And I was like, yes, I can get back to my comfy bed and not be sleeping on the edge of the bed, because she seems to take up, for such a small little girl, she seems to want to plant herself smack dab in the middle. And then I'm like scrunched in one little side. So I was really looking forward to that. And on the night of her 5th birthday, I'm like, "Ooh, you can sleep by yourself now." She's like, "Oh, I don't think I'm ready." I was like, "What?" Too bad for me. So she continues not to be ready. Now that the scale has moved, when I'm 6, I'll be ready. I'm like, I sure hope this isn't going to be like when you're 10, I'm still sleeping in your bed, because it's not really all that much fun, to be honest. But, this is kind of my philosophy of certain things with kids. You only get to do it once. Well, in my case, I'm only doing it once. Some of you have done it 10 times, but your children go through these phases one time in their life. So, at 5 years old, if they need a little bit more comfort and they need to sleep with them, yes, it's a sacrifice on your part, but why did you have kids if you're not willing to make a sacrifice? So, I figure, if it gives her a degree of comfort, then, I'll do it until she's confident enough and ready enough to sleep on her own. And like most kids, she doesn't like the dark. So we do have like a nightlight on in her room as well. So thank you, Miss Juanita. I appreciate that. Darius says, I treat people like they have the plague at work because of that reason. Yeah. And I mean, in some instances, it's unavoidable. It certainly depends on your workspace and your work environment. But, some people work very closely together. They're part of a team, and their desk space may not be, the office is just configured in such a way where you are really in close proximity to other people. So, I've been having sinus issues, which, with the change in weather, I think that's kind of what my thing was. And then I think last week I did have a little bit of a like a congestion, like in my throat and stuff like that. But the change in the weather really does impact my sinuses. So it looks like that's what I'm having at the moment. So I'm just going to monitor that situation as well. But hasn't the weather been really nice lately? Well, thank God, because now we can actually open a window without dying from the humidity immediately. But thank you so much, Miss Hero Blair. Yes, we are all vulnerable. And, it's just one of those things. I don't know about a bunch of antibodies. So, because the problem is, we don't know how much you get from natural immunity. And I think every infection is different. Like some people get more and others don't. So, so just keep in mind that nasopharyngeal samples have been considered the gold standard for COVID testing. That's why they do the PCR test. Variability in viral load across different anatomical sites could cause them to be less sensitive than saliva or nasal samples in certain cases. So self-collected samples have logistical advantages, making them easier. That's why now we're doing lateral flow tests to the general population. So, there's going to be different tools, folks, that we're going to use in our fight against COVID. And the fight against COVID really starts with, what you're actually doing to diagnose COVID. So, once you know that you're COVID positive, then you need to take additional precautions. So if you're COVID positive, obviously you should not be going to work. So that's really, really important to note. You've got a responsibility, quite frankly. So thank you so much. I've got tons of messages coming in on WhatsApp. Someone says, I absolutely enjoyed co-sleeping with my boys when they were small, and we're all in separate rooms now. Yeah, I mean, when I first I was pregnant and I had my daughter, I was very much against it. I'm like, don't co-sleep with the baby, put her back in her crib. And we definitely did that. I think the thing though is her crib was actually, for logistical reasons, in her room, because it was just easier when you have to get out in the middle of the night. And she isn't the world's best sleeper. We had a little incident when she was 3 months old where she actually fell off the bed. Oh my God. Talking about my heart like jumping and skipping in the middle of the night that night. I was like, oh my God, we just killed a baby. But babies and children are very resilient, thank God. So she was fine, but I was like, listen, sometimes you're tired in the middle of the night, you're trying to do a feeding, whatever. I mentally, I'm like, do the right thing. Put the child back in their crib so they can sleep safely. Because it is easy to even fall asleep with a baby. And next thing you know, plunk, they're on the ground. So Carol says it's entirely possible your daughter may have had it, been completely asymptomatic. So we have been lateral flow testing her before that, actually, because she did have a positive at school. Her positive at school was a little bit different in the sense that her positive at school was a couple weeks ago, and then the child hadn't really been in the school environment for a number of days. So they were all the kids, got kits, and then everybody was lateral flow testing. So she was lateral flow testing for that. We haven't made her do a PCR test at this stage, but I suspect that he didn't get it from her. I don't think that he did at all. And he doesn't go out very much. So pretty much he's like a work at home kind of person, like literally. He's not going to the grocery store. He's not, I think in the last couple of weeks, the only place he went other than work and home he had lunch with me out at late lunch on Thursday of last week. And then I think he went to the insurance company like the week before. But the timing, when you think about the timing of like when you get it and be symptomatic and that sort of thing, we think it's probably work related for him. So, again, we had that COVID related death over the weekend. Oh gosh. Okay. No. She's like, no, my daughter's still in the bed and she's 12. Oh no. I don't want to pass 6, to be honest. So Sarah says, she won't be 16 and sleeping in your bed, so soak up all the cuddles while you can. Well, what I try not to do, Sarah, to be honest, is I actually try not to cuddle her because I don't want her to get used to that. Because you know how when you're used to somebody hugging you up and you're used to a blanket, whatever, that's hard to get unused to. So one of the things, she kind of has some interesting quirks about her sleeping habits. So she likes to sleep with a pillow on her foot. I don't know why. It's just a thing. So every night she's like, where's my pillow? Put this pillow on my foot. So she sleeps with more than one pillow. And she's gotten used to now. Before she would throw off a blanket, even if you could tell she was cold and you covered it up. She hated it. Now she is getting a little bit used to having a blanket on because she does get cold overnight. But she only wants certain blankets, certain types of material she doesn't like. And so I sleep like I'm in my little section of the bed, but I try not to touch her or to cuddle her because that would be an extra habit that then she's gonna have to break out of as part of this, okay, you can sleep on your own separation. So I try not to do that. And the other thing is I wonder, because I know I snore. I'm sure of that. And so I wonder if she's also like gotten used to my snoring as like almost a noise machine, where she's gonna miss it if she doesn't hear me snoring in the middle of the night. And you know what is so weird is if I am working late, which a lot of times she goes to bed. We're at about 8:30 now. We're doing pretty good with 8:30. I wish I could move it to 7:30, but that's a little bit challenging for us. But I get her to bed 8:30, 8:45, and then I'll stay up until 1 o'clock doing work and whatever. And some nights she gets up and she comes looking for me. So if I'm in the office, I can hear the little footsteps come in, toot, 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 and I'm like, oh gosh. And then I'll get in bed. So it's like she physically misses me, so they wake up and they're like, nobody's here with me. What's going on? Leslie, good morning. Says viral infections skip people in the same house or same spaces all the time. This is why they used to have chickenpox parties where parents deliberately had infected kids rub their blisters on uninfected children's skin. That's disgusting. All successful children would get it at once and it was done. The whole community, one shot. Yeah, that's kind of dangerous though. A lot of people we remember had COVID parties too until they realized that, COVID isn't the chicken pox. Look at my crazy hair this morning. You got to be extra careful because you do not know, how it's going to turn out for you. It's nothing to joke about. I saw another story over the weekend that looked a little bit interesting. I think Renee might be putting that up where oh gosh, what was that story again? A woman, her husband was suing. Oh God, where is that story? Did I not send that to Renee? Her husband was suing the, where is that story? Her husband was suing the hospital for not giving her ivermectin. And she died. I'm just trying to remember how this story went. Or was she suing the husband? Wait, she was suing the hospital. Hold on. I think it was the woman who was suing the hospital for not giving her husband ivermectin, caught COVID and died. Is that the one? Okay, here we go. October the 5th. I feel like there's another case like this too. But this is a okay. Man dies of COVID-19 after wife sues for ivermectin treatment. So I kind of feel like there's another story like this too. But anyway, an Ohio man whose wife sued a Cincinnati area hospital for refusing to provide him with ivermectin as he was intubated due to COVID-19 has died, according to one of her attorneys. So he was 51 years old. He died September the 25th. He was on a ventilator, and his wife, Julie Smith, filed a lawsuit against the Westchester Hospital for refusing to honor a prescription of ivermectin written by a physician who founded a controversial group that champions the drug. So again, it says here that ivermectin is an antiparasitic in humans and a dewormer in livestock. It has grown in popularity, egged on by conservative commentators and politicians as a treatment and preventative against COVID-19. The CDC and the FDA, the American Medical Association, the drug manufacturers, and more all warn against the drug's use against COVID-19, given the lack of evidence to support the treatment and the risk the drug can pose to those who take it. So I had some local lunatic messaging me yesterday about ivermectin. And he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, apparently neither the CDC, the Food and Drug Administration, the American Medical Association, and the manufacturers of the drug itself. You kind of should probably listen to the manufacturers of the drug if they tell you don't use your drug except in very limited circumstances and these approved dosages for this particular thing. But anyway, you can't separate some of these people from their ideas, right? So on August the 23rd, she actually won an emergency judgment that forced the hospital to administer the ivermectin. Didn't help. So he still died. But the common pleas judge, Michael Oster, actually reversed the ruling some 13 days later. I'm sure by then he would have gotten the ivermectin, but anyway. The judgment isn't a determination. He said that ivermectin will never be proven effective against COVID-19, However, based on the evidence, it has not been shown to be effective at this junction. The studies that tend to give support to ivermectin have been inconsistent. Limitations to the studies with open label studies were of low quality or low certainty, including small sample sizes, various dosing regimens, and have been so riddled with issues that the study was actually withdrawn. See, when y'all relying on these studies, but somebody did a study that ivermectin works, turns out it was withdrawn. So not really. So you can read the Ohio Capital Journal for more details on that if you're interested. So a lot of people think that the thing to do is to sue physicians and hospitals, forcing them to give a treatment that they know can do more harm than good, which is unfortunate. So this is what another case actually said. The hospital would have an independent duty to not just fulfill the physician's prescription, because you'll find crazy physicians who will give you a prescription. That's not the point, right? But actually to exercise its own judgment as to what the standard of care should be, because it could be held liable should something adverse happen. So this is interesting, right? They want to sue to get ivermectin, but I've wondered this myself. When something happens to their loved one, I mean, at the point that you're being intubated, you're going to die. I mean, it's not, as Soka said a couple of days ago, when people say, well, how many ventilators do we have? That's probably not where your focus should be, because when you get to the point where you're being put on a ventilator, your chances of survival have decreased exponentially, right? So Dr. Jody Madeira, who's a law professor at the IU Warrior School of Law, says that I'm unaware of any legal basis for court to order an off-label use of any medication over basically the objections of a treating physician in hospital. So it almost presumes that courts would know better than anyone else, and they would almost be superimposing themselves, their own judgment, upon that of a doctor. And then Mr. Schwartz continues and says, Dr. Peter Schwartz says, it's simply not your right to have an ethical claim to any treatment you think or maybe some other doctor think could help you. So we briefly touched on this topic yesterday. Can you, as a patient, walk into a facility and be like, oh, I want to tell you, the physician, how to treat me? I'm pretty sure that's never how it's worked. You can refuse treatment. I don't think there's anything that could force you to even go to the hospital. We saw a poor little friend that died last week. He kept refusing treatment off and on for many, many years for facial cancer. Nobody could force him, especially if there was no mental health element to why he's refusing treatment. No one can force him to get treatment. But what you can't do is for him to go in there and says, oh, I have facial cancer, I want you to give me ivermectin. The physicians would be like, sir, that's not the approved use of that drug. Oh, I'm a heart patient, but give me chemotherapy. No. Soka says, OMG, I find this is so aggravating, Sandra. They're doing it terribly wrong. Like a doctor told me, if you have COVID, it can be detected just inside the nostril. Well, I guess it depends on your viral load. That's why it's so easily spread. Why are they finding so many positives over there if they're not performing the test correctly? I'm confused by that bit. Sorry to say, but Kevin was wrong when he said they almost have to get some brain tissue to get it correctly. He was probably joking, but it was wrong and careless, especially for those test takers watching. Well, if you're a test taker, we're not talking about the lateral flow test, first of all. And I know Kevin wasn't talking about the lateral flow test. The PCR test, how far up do you have to go? Let's find out. The lateral flow test is a very different situation. That's not intended to go incredibly far. And that's why when there was that video of that mother doing it, it was a bit like, what is she doing? Because she was doing it as though it was, I'm surprised that little child did not have a nosebleed, because she was doing it as though it was a PCR test. And it looked like she was doing it with the amount of force that was causing the child to wince and stuff as well, which was very uncomfortable to watch. So how far up do you go? So for most people over the age of 12, a swab goes up between 2 and 3 centimeters inside the nostril, but that will vary from person to person. The national guidelines for testing, so remember folks, they're guidelines for all of this, just like they're guidelines for what you're going to consider to be COVID-related death, COVID cause, and so on. They're classifications and guidelines. Here's one that I'm going to share with you. This is the actual guideline. So it says, for people over the age of 12, a swab between 2 and 3 centimeters into the nostril. And again, this varies from person to person. I would guess that sometimes your nasal cavity and how your nasal cavity is designed could certainly make a difference. So the national guidelines for testing come from Public Health Laboratory Network. This is in Australia, actually. Say the swab should go up to 3 centimeters deep or until there is resistance in the cavity. And for children between 6 and 12, the depth is 2 centimeters. And for the ages of 2 to 6, the swab will go about 1.5 centimeters into the nostril. And for those under the age of 2, they don't have to go quite as deep. It's 1 centimeter deep. So it needs to be rotated against the nasal wall to absorb the secretions required for testing. So mind you now, I've only had 2 tests. And this time I could really feel her rotating. So it was the rotating more than anything else. And I was like, what the heck? And they say here that this cavity is actually quite small and lined with membranes containing a lot of tiny blood vessels, making it quite a sensitive area. And while it helps to trap dust and other particles in the air from going into your lungs, it's not all that pleasant having a foreign object like a swab in there. So this is quite interesting about, how to get it done and how to do it. Now, there's lots of information here. How deep do nasopharyngeal swabs go? That's not even a pretty picture to look at, to be quite honest. So one of the interesting things about this is last week, I'm sure you guys would have heard, a mother who was saying that her child had been, thank you for these images, that her child had been, what do you call it? Her child had been, this is the CDC guidelines. Let me just pull this one over. So they've got their own guidelines for clinical specimen. Oh, are you guys seeing this page? I think I pulled it down. There we go. So here's the guideline from the CDC about how to do it. And I would say that it's fair to say, you see how far they go with the swab, right? And you see how long that is in the nasal cavity. It's not a little twirl at the outside of the, it's definitely not a little twirl at the outside of the nasal cavity. And then here's a child. So last week, a parent had sent out a number of messages on social media, posted it on Facebook with her child having a nosebleed. And, she at first was saying that they had purposely done this to this child. Now, I don't know. To say that, okay, the child got a nosebleed is one thing. To say that the HSA staff were purposely attacking a child, it's weird. It's just really, really bizarre. I don't know why would HSA be targeting a child? Like for me, when I heard that part of the story, I'm like, why? You got to explain, you got to give me a why on this, because that doesn't make any logical sense. Some nurses are not the most gentle in the world, but for me to be convinced that a nurse is purposely trying to, hurt a child is a little bit unusual. And by the way, they call it the brain scraper, which is probably what Kevin was referring to. That's sort of a colloquial term in terms of, what they're calling the whole PCR testing thing, right? So I did speak with the mother, and then she came back and I said, why would you think they were targeting your child? Like, you've done something to the HSA that you think they would then take it out on an innocent child? Like, I'm not really understanding. Then she came back and said, well, maybe it wasn't a target, but they did it wrong or whatever. And I said, I don't know that. And I can't presume that to be the case. Just because a child gets a nosebleed also does not mean that anybody gets a nosebleed. That does not mean that it was done wrong. I mean, I've heard of people self-administering a test and they themselves get a nosebleed from this. Now, I also know that as a mother, you see anything happens to your child or anything wrong with your child, your first response is to be very upset, especially if you're not there. And for whatever reason, this child isn't Cayman Brac, and the mother, it looks like it is actually in Grand Cayman. So this is a photo in case you guys missed it. It's not a nosebleed in the sense that it's like running down her face, like it's uncontrollable. This looks like a control nosebleed that has trickled down, her face a little bit. So this little child had a nosebleed. And so when I said, well, again, the question becomes, if a child gets a nosebleed from a PCR test, does that mean that it was administered incorrectly? And so that doesn't mean that that's the case. So the mother said, she wanted the country to know about the physical and mental trauma that the HSA has inflicted on a 3-year-old. Okay. I started to look at this and I started to try to be as objective as possible. Her objection seemed to be that today was their 14th day of isolation to be tested. And they went to the house in Cayman Brac, and her quote was, poorly administered a PCR test on my child, and in which caused blood to come from her nose. And I'm not even there to be with her because public health threatened me that if I go home, I would be fined. So she's the only individual who has been negative via LF tests, and they only tested her today. So a couple things I found interesting about this is the insinuation that she shouldn't be tested because she's a child is a little bit wrong, because we all know that children can actually very much be COVID positive and show absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. So they can be, super spreaders in the sense that they can be asymptomatic and carry an extremely high viral load. And we've talked about this before in this program, quite some time actually, because in fact, that's just how it is. I mean, there's been research for quite some time that has led to that position being the case. So I must say, I said to her, listen, as a mother, I can appreciate, especially if you're not there, why you would be upset, even seeing this at all. But you also have to be accurate and fair in whether or not this is caused by neglect, mismanagement, other things, right? So what I know is that it's not really all that common to get a nosebleed, but it does happen. So it's not entirely unheard of. Here are some considerations. Let me show you guys this. What you can expect during your nasopharyngeal swab. This is your PCR test. Before you test, tell the test taker if you have any nose or sinus issues, recent nose injury or surgery, medication that thins out your blood, a blood clotting disorder. So there are things that can certainly make a difference with how the test is administered and how it impacts every single individual a little bit differently. So yeah, I mean, I don't think that anyone was trying to hurt this child on purpose. And you can have a nosebleed with anything like this. I mean, shoot, the change in weather causes some people to have a nosebleed. Little things like that. So there's another article here that says that sometimes there are after effects. Your eyes get watery and so forth. So this is someone online. Some people actually get a headache from it, teary eyes, nosebleeds, and so on. So we're wishing this young lady a speedy recovery. One physician here says that no two noses are the same. The goal with the swab should be to get to the nasopharynx, I think that's how that's pronounced, without hitting anything along the way. Unfortunately, the geometry of the nasal passages is different from person to person. The mucous membrane that lines your nose has a lot of nerve endings. And in general, the body's pretty tolerant the first couple of centimeters as far as you can stick your finger in. You know, you can't stick your finger too far up your nose, especially if you got chubby fingers. But beyond that, the mucous membrane reacts to being touched. So this is just a little bit of an explanation here, folks. And the more you know, the more you grow, right? So, sorry, just trying to find where I left off. Right. So the mucous membrane that lines your nose has a lot of nerve endings. And Dr. Lane here goes on to say, oh, we just read that part, sorry. This activates involuntary hardwire reflexes. So depending on how strongly your body responds, the result can be discomfort, teary eyes, pain, and other reactions. Some people get gagging, coughing, sneezing. It's all part of the same reflex, he says. For people who are more prone to get headaches, it can trigger a whopper. As for nosebleeds, that membrane called the mucosa is delicate and has lots of blood vessels. This is now MD Philip Shen, an associate professor of, oh God, here's a big word, otolaryngology. See the word larynx in there? This is where that course, that Greek and Latin root words really comes in handy. Let's see if we can pronounce this. Can we get a definition of this word? Obviously, it has to do with the head and neck. So hold on, definition. See if we can get a proper pronunciation of the word. I love this pronunciation feature. Anybody else love this pronunciation feature? Let's hear how they pronounce it.
Otolaryngology. Otolaryngology.
Otolaryngology. That's a mouthful.
Otolaryngology.
Otolaryngology. So you do, that's a hard G. The first G is actually a hard G. Gology. Okay.
Otolaryngology.
Otolaryngology. There you go. Say that about twice and you're done for the day. So, you know, nosebleeds are not entirely unheard of. So it says nosebleeds occur if the swab irritated and broke the surface of the mucosa. This is likely to happen in dry climates at altitude if the person has a very narrow nose. And some people faint from the test as well. This is faint and also has a very straightforward explanation. It's called a vasovagal effect. And this can occur whenever the body has a strong response to situations such as emotional distress or pain. For some people, the anxiety of having the procedure or actual pain can result in fainting. And although some say the test feels like having your brain tickled or stabbed, the swab can't actually get near your gray matter. There's actually 3 layers of protection in the nose. There's a mucosal lining, which covers the inside of the nose. There's the olfactory epithelium involved in the sense of smell. The inside, which is the dura mater, also called tough mother, is a tough lining of skin around the brain. It's hard to penetrate through it without something sharp. Says an ear, nose, and throat surgeon in Los Angeles, Dr. Nazari, MD. So, yeah. In a small number of cases around the world, testing has led to leaking of cerebral spinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid, yes. And I've heard of one case of this. I think that was last year. At least one of those was found to be due to previously unknown birth defect. So this is the thing, right? Sometimes you go in, even with COVID, we saw that where people early on were getting COVID and dying, and they're like, oh my God, this person actually had cancer and nobody knew that they had a blood disease or whatever, right? So they walk around thinking that they're perfectly healthy, and here they are 25, 30 years old, and COVID kills them. And when they start to look at why they were on like the elderly community, which we expect to have a larger number of deaths from. This is pre-Delta, folks, so be very, very careful what I'm about to say here. Don't twist the facts. But, why would a healthy person, and then you come to find out, oh, wow, they were actually diabetic and didn't know it. There's one case I remember telling you guys about where the person actually had cancer and they had no clue until they got COVID. And unfortunately, that was their undoing. So, we can be walking around thinking we're fine. And this is why sometimes when people drop dead, y'all be like, oh, but I saw that person on Friday and they look good to me. If that's all it took was looking at someone to say that they looked good, rest assured that we would all be physicians. I would have an MD after my name because I'm like, oh, honey child, you look good. You're good to go. Go run a marathon. And the person drops down with a heart attack. You cannot look at someone and tell if they're medically fine or not. And sometimes, depending on what kind of test you're taking, we've seen people, well, they just went to the hospital and got a clean bill of health. That doesn't mean that you can't have an instantaneous stroke that was not detectable days before. Do you know that the vast majority of people who die from coronary issues like a heart attack had no previous symptoms? No high cholesterol, no blood, nothing. The heart just kapluk, and that's it. It's just life, folks. I mean, I was saying this to my girlfriend yesterday about how the human body is so amazing. I'm like, if we appreciated how much our body does for us every single day we get up and we're like relatively pain-free and, all the things that could go wrong, that don't go wrong in the space of 24 hours to keep you alive. It's just amazing in my mind. And so a lot of people aren't thinking about how complex the body is. And that's why, sometimes physicians get it wrong. They're not perfect. Big shout out to Purell at Reliable Supplies. You can get all of your Purell hand sanitizer products. Right now, I've got one at the door. I've got some in my bag. You want to make sure that you're stocking up on hand sanitizers as much as possible.
Purell hand sanitizer products are available at Reliable Supplies. Contact us today for Purell hand wipes that are convenient to carry with you, or alcohol-based hand sanitizer pump, ideal for offices, schools, and homes. Contact Reliable Supplies today to get your COVID-19 supply at 949-9303, or stop by our showroom, centrally located off Compass Drive.
All right, so thank you. Yeah, Carol says, but would she sue if they'd given him ivermectin? I kind of think that he ended up getting it because in the days, the 13 days that passed during the, I guess, appeal process or whatever, the hospital probably gave it to him. It just doesn't work. I don't know why, people who think, I don't know. Like I said, everybody's an expert these days. I'm sitting here in my corner like, I'm no expert, y'all. I don't know nothing, but I'm willing to learn. And the difference with me is I check my sources and I'm not willing to believe all these crazy sources. And so some people be getting upset with me like, oh, Sandy won't believe what I sent her. I'm like, look at the source, honey child. Soka says the power of hot steam is underestimated. That's another one. It's like the foot soaking thing, where people put their feet in water and they soak it and they see all this black dirt or whatever come off. They're like, oh, these are all the toxins being drawn out of your skin. Do you know how toxins get into your body? And they can't be withdrawn like that. It's just like sometimes people don't seem to fully understand some of what they're saying. Leslie says the HSA staff have been doing the most and best for all the people who came in. They've been swamped since the pandemic hit. Please be sure that their intentions are not to harm. It is an uncomfortable test to receive and very difficult to administer, even with the highest level of caution. I got a headache from when I did it both times. It was uncomfortable, and I swore they killed a part of my little pug nose. Tears flowed for 15 minutes afterwards, and my father was very concerned watching me deal with, it got cut off. But yeah, I mean, they do have to get in there to get a proper sample. So Soka says were they trying to get a colonoscopy? No. Louise says it's like buying a fruit because it looks good. We think it's sweet. Exactly. Mind you, fruits are still easier because you can tell with certain fruits. There's certain things you can look for to kind of tell. But yeah, I mean, Louise, you just never know. You know what it's like? It's like an avocado. That's the best example because avocados can fool you every single time. You pick up an avocado and you're like, oh yeah, this can be a good one. Feels good, looks good. And then you cut into it and it's all black and no good. And you're like, really? What the heck? Avocados are the hardest thing to pick. They're always like, it's Russian roulette. You just never know what you're going to get. So Elizabeth says that's scary. Thank God for the Flolanders test, because no one going to test my babe like that. I don't know what the Flolanders test is. The other thing that kind of made me pause with this situation is that the mother then posted on social media. Obviously, she had that up, but then she then posted her position. And I think that this undermined a lot of people's belief in how serious it was. So she said that, you know, she's not vaccinated and she's not going to get vaccinated. And she's not going to vaccinate any of her children. So she says she's not an anti-vaxxer, but this is a flu with less than 1% fatal rate in kids. And she says, I will never. So again, you know, when you hear someone with that position, you do kind of revisit the other comments in light of how they're really thinking. So if you don't even believe in vaccinations and the benefit of vaccinations, I'm like, okay, well, I could see why you'd also be looking for a reason to really be up the behind of the HSA as well. You know, every procedure, folks, has potential side effects. And you should not think that there will never be a single person in the Cayman Islands who has had a nosebleed. Now, how often has this been reported? Well, someone said that someone all the way in Little Cayman, Miss Maxine, after she saw this post, then came forward and said that she had had a nosebleed as well. I don't know why she would have waited to share that information, but regardless, okay, that's two people that I've heard of. Who else? You know, if it was every fifth person, we would be hearing these stories all the time. So I think that given the thousands of tests that are done every single day, and when I say thousands, I mean between the HSA and the private facilities, they do a lot of I'm trying to read a question and understand what this question is. They do a lot of testing, right? And if 99% of the people using that same formula, well, if it's less than 1%, why worry about it? Well, if it's less than 1% who has a nosebleed, why would we really be making this an issue? I'm just saying. Oh no, my girlfriend just messaged me this morning and said that she was tested and her daughter, her 4-year-old, is positive. Oh man, that sucks. But welcome to the world of COVID, y'all. It's going to touch us all. I mean, just ironically, just last night I said to this person when I was saying to them that my husband's positive and I'm negative, and you know, we carry on. They're like, I said, but honey, this is going to touch all of us in one way or the other. It really, really is. And they were kind of like, oh, well, maybe don't say it that way. I wasn't trying to put my goat mouth on you, my friend, but now you see what I mean when I say it's going to touch all of us in some way, shape, or another. It just is what it is. I don't think y'all should be stressing about it. If you've done everything that you can do and you follow the good protocol, then that's good common sense. One observer on WhatsApp says, sorry, read the nearness of COVID-19 to you, but remember that these things have no boundaries. It infects the best of the best. Yeah. There's simply no boundaries. Here's a good consultation for you. They can lock you up, but they can't shut you up. Lock me up with COVID. So thank you for sending some information, some accurate information on ivermectin. So somebody else says fever grass tea, garlic, and steam the face at least twice a day. Salt water, add garlic. Yeah, that sounds like this remedy for common cold. You know, if you want to do all those home remedies, knock yourselves out. And, you know, I don't think that it's going to hurt you, but is it going to stop COVID? Well, not for how COVID works. You know, at the end of the day, there will be things, the treatments like the body aches and that sort of thing. Anything that you can do to help with that is certainly, I would say, welcome. As Kevin said, getting one of those, and I've ordered one, it just hasn't arrived yet. Getting one of those oxygen monitors that you stick in your finger is actually really, really important. Soka says So Pure, it contains methanol. What is So Pure? Is that a brand of sanitizer? I don't even know what So Pure is. But stick with Purell, folks. They've been proven. I was watching a very interesting article about how one time they almost went out of business because people didn't see the sense of hand sanitizers and stuff. And then this was before COVID. Their business model started to really, really pick up. But child, y'all want to talk about somebody making some money these days? It's definitely the manufacturers of cleaning products and sanitizers and that sort of thing. So yeah, if you've got mild symptoms at home and you want to help with some of those, then certainly there's a number of things that you can do. Washing your hands often. Don't have any visitors in your home, that's for sure. You want to do things like cough into a tissue. So don't cough open mouth, open air, because again, that's putting your viral particles out there. Clean frequently touched surfaces every day. Don't share personal items like dishes, towels, or bedding. Clothing and linens washed thoroughly with lots of hot water. Crank up the hot water, folks. Limit contact with pets while sick. Your little animals can get it too. So of course, if you start to exhibit more serious symptoms, trouble breathing, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, confusion, or you can't be woken up, then you definitely need to call 911. In terms of coronavirus medicine, if you've got a fever, then obviously you can take a fever reducer. Stay hydrated, just rest. I think that's always the number one thing when you're sick, is to make sure that your body gets enough rest. For the cough, just sip on drinks all day to keep your throat moisturized and keep hydrated. Drink warm beverages like tea or broth. So this is where, bring on the chicken soup. Nothing wrong with that. Any kind of tea would help. And the heat up the airways will actually help to keep you hydrated and break up any mucus that you might be having in your throat and upper airway. Yes, a teaspoon of honey. It soothes the throat. Just remember that honey for kids under 1 is not recommended at all. It can be deadly. A hot shower, a humidifier, a vaporizer, all of that makes steam. And that, again, the benefit of the steam, you're not curing the virus. What you're simply doing is soothing a sore throat. And the steam opens up your airwaves. So that's why you feel better with certain things. Whether it's, everybody believes in our little Vicks because that, steams you out in a way as well. So that does open up your airwaves. Gargling salt water, nothing wrong with that. Even eating a frozen treat is good because the coldness may help numb the pain and soothe your throat if you have a sore throat from coughing. Sucking in cough drops, lozenges, and hard candy. You can do cough medicine if you have a wet cough and lots of mucus. You want to take an expectorant to help break that mucus and remove that. If you have a dry cough, a cough suppressant is what you want, and make sure that you choose the right one. So there's a difference between them. If you're having any pain, you can take a little bit of acetaminophen, which is just painkiller. I think most of the painkillers fall into that category. If you start having a shortness of breath and stuff, now that's where you gotta be a little bit more cautious. All right. So let's move the conversation forward. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the clarification. So Pure was in the shelves. Okay, I'm not familiar with So Pure, to be honest. So Gabby says that's if you have hot water. I know a few people that rent that don't have hot water. Wow. Should you be, I'm thinking about this, Gabby, in terms of things that you expect when you rent a house. You expect electricity, right? That's a bit of a given. Do you expect hot water? I mean, I would think so. To me, that seems like I'm looking for my back scratcher. 1 second. Yeah, to me, that seems like that's not a major amenity. Like that should come with an apartment. What do y'all think? I mean, I don't take cold showers, so I don't know nothing about that life. Ooh, me and a cold shower don't really like each other. We do not mix. I'm having my breakfast right now. I'm going to have a banana. That's interesting, Gabby. Some of these landlords, they have no scruples about them. None whatsoever. They won't be charging people an arm and a leg for a place that a cockroach would even want to stay in. Baral, good morning. Yes, a pulse oximeter. Like I said, I ordered one off of Amazon, but I'm waiting on my friends over at Aeropost to get that to me. They're consolidating my order. Miss Morna says that you can use the stove to heat up the water, which is true. But I think some people just want to actually take a hot bath and just have it, you can create a steam on the stove, but just as Miss Morna says, a pot of hot water and even just a towel over your face. You can put that over your face and like create your own steam if you don't have anything more sophisticated. But sometimes you just want to get in the shower and have a proper hot bath, like all over your body, have it running down on you. Because, the heat, I feel like, helps with a lot of different things. Even cleaning out your pores. Listen, you'll clean out your nasal cavity and your pores at the same time if you do a facial steam. But, the rest of your body needs it too. Like I feel like when I got aches and pains and whatever, a nice hot bath really can help. Now, I don't do baths, so let me be very clear. I don't sit in a bathtub. I'm very much a germaphobe. And the idea of sitting in a bathtub kind of irks me out a little bit, but I can see where a soak is sometimes good and some Epsom salt and other stuff, but I like a nice hot shower. How can they possibly think that it's okay to rent an apartment or room with no hot water is really wrong? Those people trying to think about their CUC bills, but I also think that there should be some minimum standards, right? So in other news, Boris, what's his name? Prime Minister of the UK has said that apparently they could be going into a potential lockdown for Christmas. So he's not ruled that potential out, Boris Johnson. He admitted that a Christmas lockdown was not completely off the cards, as he made a desperate plea for Britons to get their booster jabs, and as the UK's daily COVID numbers continue to rise. Now, remember, we've been talking about the UK for a minute because they kind of just flung everything open with no regard for anything. So no social distancing, no mask wearing, nothing. So the Prime Minister, who actually appeared himself to be suffering from a cold, warned storm clouds of infection were gathering over Europe. So now we know that Europe turns out at this moment in time to be the epicenter of the current wave of coronavirus infections. I think we talked briefly about this last week. The World Health Organization director, I believe it was, said the week before that Europe they're very concerned about Europe as a whole. And the UK seems to be one of the leading countries. So this could start to force some of those nations back into restrictions. And he said that, the UK cannot afford to be complacent. He's encouraging people to, get a booster shot if they want to avoid restrictions on daily lives. And that it would be an utter tragedy if double vaccinated people died from COVID because they didn't get one. So, of course, with the winter season now being here as well, that will lead to, an increase in sicknesses across the board, including COVID infections. So Britain recorded another 39,705 daily coronavirus infections, which were up nearly a quarter from last Monday's figures. But deaths and hospital admissions are both lagging indicators, fell week on week. So at least that number seems to be okay. 47 COVID victims registered today, down 18% from last week. And the latest hospital data shows that there were 976 admissions on November the 9th, which was also down 7.5%. So he had a press conference at Downing Street, and he said that basically anyone in their 40s and above were being offered a booster jab, and older teens will get a second dose. So I know some of you have been talking about in the UK, I think they've been doing kind of like one dose for teens. Now he's actually saying they're going to be getting that second dose because that's where you get the real protection from. So, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. They've not really been the golden standard to follow in terms of what has been going on in the UK, like doing it the right way, so to speak. So Irvlin says, I do not do bats either, in all caps. I know the feeling, Irvlin. Irvlin's a bit of a germaphobe like me. I've seen her interact in public, and I know. Miss Morgan says that she fills her tub up with warm water the same way. So Carol confirms, that the death toll remains low. I don't know if they got it right. We're going to see. And she says the UK will not stand for another lockdown. What a mess. Well, only time will tell what the outcome will be, my dear. But I don't think removing all restrictions probably meant that they got it right. I don't know. Okay. Let me just see what else is trending. So we want to express our condolences to the family of Miss Lucille Barnes, who passed away yesterday morning. Many of you will be aware that Miss Lucille, was a staple in the Boilers Road area. Locals know her areas called Moringa Town. Now, where did Moringa Town get its name from? Did Miss Lucille actually give it the name based on like her business and stuff like that? I mean, I've always known it for as long as I've been growing up as Moringa Town, even before that current location was there. It was Moringa Town. So I feel like Mr. Dick Arch knows the answer to this. I almost feel like he told me why it was called Moringa Town before, but now I can't remember. I need to organize some interviews with him. Obviously, it's not going to happen this week. Although, Mr. Dick, I don't have to physically come and see you to do an interview. As long as you have computer access, we can do it online. And I can record it same way and play it to our audience. But I must admit, for the older folks, I kind of do enjoy visiting them and sitting down with them. But, right now, that's not going to happen. But we send out our condolences to Miss Lucille. I think she lost a brother recently. And she also lost her daughter about 3 years ago now. Somebody said 3 years. I'm like, 3 years already? Oh my gosh, time stands still for nobody. So we understand that Miss Lucille passed away after a brief illness yesterday morning at Health City. And so condolences go out to her. She was definitely a staple. Like I said, I mean, I hail from not far from that area as a Georgetowner. And I always remember Miss Lucille just kind of being around the place, So our condolences are definitely extended to her family. Sad situation, of course. And she had a she was a strong woman. She's a businesswoman. And, you're not always going to have everybody love you when you have to put your foot down as a businesswoman, and these things happen. We know some months back there was some mix up with one of her tenants, and she was being very, very firm in her position with that. She's had other housing tenants that, have contacted us over the years. But, in a time like this, all we can do is let her family know that we are certainly thinking of them. And, she will certainly be missed. So a number of deaths over the weekend. This is at least the fourth one between Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And for a community this size, when you have that many people die in such a short space of time, you really feel it, especially it's people that you know. And there's a lot of people who'd be like, oh yeah, the death rate is so high, when in fact, the death rate is actually at an all-time low of 10 years. But when you have a cluster like this, it does make you pause and go, whoa, did everybody in Cayman just die? Well, no, it's only 4 people. It's only 4 people. So it's sad because, like I said, everybody feels death in smaller communities, especially. And it is what it is. So Sue says, didn't Boris just say as long as everybody have their vaccine boosters shouldn't have to lock down? Well, I mean, I'm guessing that's what he's hoping, but I'm sure that at some point when the numbers surpass a certain amount, that he's probably going to rethink that. So I don't know. I'm not sure what his litmus test is for a lockdown. Like here, I know the litmus test is hospitalization numbers. And if it's overly taxing the HSA resources, then that's when, we would go into a bit more of a reserve lockdown position. Now, there's some rumors circulating about that yesterday, and I checked with my very reliable sources, and I've heard that isn't true. That the people who are in the hospital, the numbers are fluctuating. So people go in and out. So, people leave, they get discharged, and then other people come in. And I think over the weekend, they've only had 2 additional people admitted thus far. So Elizabeth says, parents, please talk to your children how serious this COVID-19 virus is, because my daughter, who's fully vaccinated, came in contact with one of her friends that tested positive. So I notified her school and they advised me to test her. I did. She was negative. Her friend then called and said it was a joke. What? Are you kidding me? I was like, no, I don't believe her, because the school talked to her mom and confirmed that she tested positive. So of course she was going out and doing the most and was upset that my daughter told on her. Wow. Jeez and peace, Elizabeth, that's not cool. And how old is this child? This is a teenager? First of all, why is the mother allowing a positive child to be out and about? They should be in lockdown and should not have been able to come in contact with your child. That doesn't sound like a good situation. So we got a comment here. Moringa Town got its name from Lucille's father, Santo Christian, who started a little dance hall and club around the 50s when the Moringa dance first came out, hence the name. Okay. There you go. Oh, you know what I was thinking of? You know what it was I was just thinking of that you had explained to me? It was about the name where Boilers Road, Boilers, where that got its name from. That's the story I was just thinking in my head that I had heard. Someone else says that the HSA is too aggressive. I had it done elsewhere and it's uncomfortable with HSA. It actually hurt. So I've only been PCR tested twice. The first one was at the HSA, and the second one was yesterday at private hospital at Health City. And I don't think that one was more aggressive than the other. The little Indian fella who did the first one obviously had to test my daughter as well at the same time, so that wasn't pleasant. situation because she was already sick and not feeling well. And we'd been up all night sitting in the emergency room, one of the waiting rooms. But what I did find with him is when he was doing it, he said to me, open your mouth. And when I opened my mouth, that did release some of the tension of him going up my nasal cavity. So I thought that that was good advice that he offered that wasn't really offered yesterday, but because I already had heard it, I made sure I opened my mouth when she did it. So yeah, I mean, that has been my personal experience, but everybody's different. So Chantal says that some parents are telling their children to lie about being positive. What? So they're going around allowing positive kids to roam and then tell them to lie that they're negative? Is that what you're saying? Oh, that's not good. And that type of thing is an actual offense, right? You do know that that would be against the law to do that. And so this is why when we wonder why our children have no respect for like authority and all this other stuff, here's probably a good example where you're teaching them to lie about something that's so important, that's a public health risk. That's not good. Very sad to hear. Tracy says people become complacent if they're vaccinated. It does not make you immune. Practice social distancing, sanitize, and wear masks to help prevent the spread. Yeah. So they're both 16 years old, says Elizabeth. Wow. Soka says, if I heard open your mouth to avoid the pain, that's where it would end. I'm done. It wasn't open your mouth to avoid the pain. I think it was open your mouth to allow you to breathe is what it was. It just, I wouldn't say that it was pain, but opening your mouth just allowed oxygen in and allowed you to breathe a little bit easier. Yes, Evelyn, parents teaching kids to lie, and then they wonder why they become little demon sperm that they are. Is it not a thing to teach your children to be honest all the time? Even when it hurts? That's what Aunt Lottie used to say. She's like, this is going to hurt. And you know what she used to say that used to make me kind of chuckle? Oh, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. And I'm sitting there going, I'm about to get an acid. And it's going to hurt me. It's going to hurt you more than it hurts me. But you don't know what? But she used to say that all the time. Oh, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. In other words, like she didn't really want to do it. I'm like, I don't know about that. But she used to say in terms of honesty, you lie and it's going to be 10 times worse. She's like, tell the truth. You're still going to get punished. But if you tell the truth, the outcome won't be as bad. Did I tell you all that I used to have a dog? It actually wasn't my dog. It was my aunt's dog. So I went there in the States. I found her with this dog named Prince. He was a black and white dog, mostly black, but he had like a little white on his chest. And he was a mutt. It wasn't anything special in that department. But mutts are like the best dogs. And so he was the sweetest little thing. And I used to have to hand feed him because I think I told you guys this. He was in a car accident when he was a puppy and he wouldn't eat. So they started hand feeding him. And then he got used to being hand fed by humans, child. And Prince was like, oh, I'm going to really be a prince. I'm going to keep hand feeding me. And so it was part of my duty and responsibilities to take care of Prince. Like I had to walk him, feed him and whatever. And child, I'd be walking him, but he didn't let anybody come close to me when I was walking him. He would like defend me. Like these unscrupulous people would look at me. He'd be like, So it was also difficult for my aunt to chastise me when Prince was around because he would protect me. Like literally, he would physically attack her if she got the belt out. Like the second he saw the belt coming, he'd be like, oh no. And I loved it. I'd be like, yes, he's my hero. He is my prince. I'd be like, I'd like stand up next to Prince when I see Aunt Lottie coming with the belt. I'd be like, try that. So after a while, she had to try and lock him up. And he wasn't a big dog, but he was a medium-sized dog. It wasn't that easy for her to move him sometimes. So I got saved a couple whoopings because of Prince. And bless his little heart. Yeah, he was like, you ain't touching her today. And it's just amazing how even a dog can understand that that's not the way you do it, in my opinion. I hate that saying Aunt Lottie was rough with you. She was, and I think what happened is she came from an era and a time when that's the only disciplining they knew because they were used to that. I don't think that they knew anything else. They didn't know how to probably sit down and have a conversation about a lot of different things. It was just like the belt, the tamarind switch, that's what they grew up knowing and understanding. And that's why I think that we can all learn and do better and know better from one generation to the next. But honestly, if you don't know any better, then you can't do any better. You're doomed to repeat the failings of your forefathers in the previous generations. And the odd thing about it is a lot of people don't see it as a failing. A lot of us have been so indoctrinated into thinking that this is the only way you can bring up a child. You drag up a child in this world with these kind of parenting skills. And sometimes I see it, like I'm out and about and I hear the way that people talk to their children and stuff. Ooh, Gabby says those wooden spoons. Oh, my aunt didn't really use wooden spoons too much, but yeah, that hurts. So yeah, so I see it all the time. And I do think it's a product of our own slave mentality, that you feel like you have to physically have your children submit to you. And there's so many things that flow out of that I believe are extremely problematic as well. I have vouched to not beat my child, not to lay my hands on my child in anger, in any state of anger at all. Because I don't know that the same hand that hurts you can be the same hand that loves you and hugs you and that sort of thing. Like, I do believe that there's a contradiction there. And again, people accept it because they think, oh, well, this is how it is kind of thing. But I have my doubts. And my doubts are not just based on my own personal beliefs. They're actually based on a degree of information over the years that I have come across. So reconsider the necessity to beat your children, folks. It's really not necessary. And you know what's so ironic? The children that get beaten the most are normally the worst ones. Like, seriously. And they're the ones who've beaten other children up in the playground and bullying other kids. There's a reason for that, because they're being taught that that's how you handle children. So Austria, did you guys see this story on CMR? Austria has placed unvaccinated people into lockdown. So Austria has taken it to a very different level. I thought that this was super, super interesting when I saw last week that they were considering it. And then when I saw that they had actually done it, I thought, wow, Austria. So they placed about 2 million people who are not fully vaccinated against COVID-19 into lockdown as the country faces a surge in coronavirus cases again. So as of yesterday, the unvaccinated will only be allowed to go out for very limited reasons, like working or buying food. So the unvaccinated were already barred from visiting restaurants, hairdressers, and cinemas, but now will be expected to stay at home. And the police will be carrying out spot checks in public places to determine the vaccination status of individuals. Wow. I don't know how many police they got, but okay. About 65% of Austria's population is fully vaccinated, one of the lowest rates in Western Europe. Lowest rates, damn. The BBC reported the European country's 7-day infection rate is more than 800 cases per 100,000, which is one of the highest in Europe. Well, there's no coincidence, folks, that lowest vaccination rate and highest infection rate go hand in hand. Their Chancellor Alexander Schellenberg says that they're not taking this step lightly, but unfortunately is necessary. The measures introduced on Monday came amid growing pressure in the nation's hospitals and will initially last for 10 days. Children under the age of 12 and people who have recently recovered from the virus will be exempt. Hundreds of people protested this new policy outside the Chancellery in the capital of Vienna, waving banners that read, "Our bodies, our freedom to decide." many have raised concerns about where the lockdown is constitutional. I think that's not right. I think that should be whether the lockdown is constitutional. And the far right Freedom Party said it would create a group of second-class citizens. Other countries introducing measures applying only to the unvaccinated. In Australia, the state of Queensland will bar unvaccinated people from restaurant, bars, and pubs from the 17th of December, and that seems to be a permanent thing. In Singapore, those who remain unvaccinated by choice will have to pay their own medical bills from December. Well, I think that's only fair. So Europe is currently the region most seriously affected by the pandemic, and several countries are introducing restrictions and warning of rising cases, amid warning. The UK has one of the highest infection rates, but thus far, no restrictions there, as we were saying earlier. So yeah, it's a hot mess, is what I would say. As with most things, I'm just like, child, it's a hot mess. They're not easy, says Soka. Speaking of not being easy, make sure that you participate in the census, because if you don't participate, then you're not easy either.
Beginning the 10th of October, residents across the Cayman Islands will be invited to participate in the 2021 census. What is the census? Simply put, the census is a head count of every person living in the Cayman Islands. The population count and data are protected and authorized by the Statistics Act. The information is confidential and cannot be shared with any law enforcement agencies. Your response helps guide business, social, and economic planning for the future of our islands. The 2021 census will inform decisions on how millions of dollars are allocated for roads, schools, hospitals and healthcare clinics, fire, emergency response services, and other programs. Census enumerators will visit your household, ask a few questions like how many people live in your house, including their age and sex. Every person counts, no matter who you are or where you live. So have your say in the 2021 census.
Folks, have your say in the 2021 census. I had someone ask me yesterday if the census was mandatory by law, and it actually is. It is mandatory, but I don't think that anyone should have to force you to do it. I think it's just one of those things where you should be doing it because you understand the importance of having this critical information for then the government to be able to make decisions based off of. So yeah, just, do it. Let me just see here. Okay, so participate in the census. That's good advice. So Blissful says that's very scary. Lockdown at the unvaccinated. It's a very scary move to be taken. I will keep listening to the results and the outcome of that. Shocking. Well, you know what's shocking is that that's going to be the norm, Blissful, and if people haven't recognized that yet, then something's wrong. Because without a doubt, there will be countries that, they have restrictions in place. That mightn't be a complete lockdown like what Austria is doing, but they will say you can't come into this place of business. Restaurant owners and so forth are going to be checking your vaccination status. Gym owners, you got to come vaccinated, bring your vaccination card. Otherwise, you're not allowed in their facilities. So there will be restrictions placed on you, whether you are based on your vaccination status. And I think that that's going to be what it is. So expect it would be what I would say. Yeah. All right, let's talk about some vandals in Baden Town, y'all. Did y'all see this video that we posted on Saturday? Listen, I don't know what's wrong with people. Some of y'all just idle. But there have been some vandals rooming the place in Baden Town. Let's watch the video. We're hoping that some of you can actually identify who these individuals are. They seem to have a lot of time on their hands, and they started early. They weren't out at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They were out shortly after 10 o'clock. This is somebody's child, y'all. Look at them. I think one is a female. But look carefully at these vandals. And Renita says, do you know I still haven't gotten my shot as yet? You're waiting on someone to come and see you, I think, right, Miss Renita? Has anyone contacted you? Now the vaccine is back in. I'm going to pull up the vaccine schedule here in a second. Maybe, Miss Renita, you need to find someone to just take you there and get it done. I mean, I know you don't get out often, but see if you can arrange for a ride. All right, so let's have a look at these vandals. Check them out. All right, folks. So two persons, I think one is a female, but again, if you know who these individuals are that are out there vandalizing a local business in Boddentown, They caused some property damage. Can you please let us know so that we can pass the information on to the property owners? This is not cool. It looks like they were casing out the place for other reasons, and then maybe they found that, you know, it wasn't as easy to break in, and so then they end up throwing rocks and, you know, vandalizing the place. So they're driving what looks like a silver Honda Accord, and like I said, they're quite bold because the distinctive jackets that they're wearing, I suspect that if someone actually knows who they are, they would be able to tell that they have those jackets. They went there prepared for trouble, though, because you see they're wearing hoodies, although one of them is stupid enough to partially pull down the hoodie off of their face at some point in time. But if you know anyone who meets all those criteria, drives a silver Honda Accord, looks like it's an older model Accord as well, and they have that jacket, you know, the distinctive marks in the jacket, by all means, I would encourage you to really, really reach out, and, you know, let's make sure that these young people are taught a lesson that you cannot go around vandalizing people's property and think that that's okay. So I'm going to show you a still photo of the jacket. So you see how there's the markings on the front. I don't know exactly what that is, but trust me, if you've seen these before, it wouldn't be that hard to then be able to identify who these could possibly be. So you see the back with the yellow and black stripes, and then the front having some sort of pinkish with a little trim of yellow design or something on it as well. So if you got any young people that were out and about after 10 o'clock on Saturday evening in the Bordentown area, you know, do let me know. So listen, if you're a member of the Filipino community, please be advised that they've got a shipment that is going to be leaving the jurisdiction, Filipino boxes. The boxes, I think, are still $65. They never seem to go up on the box price, that's for sure. So it's a good deal. You can fill it with as much stuff as you can get in there, I suppose. And the shipment is actually leaving in December. So you've got a couple weeks to kind of get your shipment together. Obviously, this is not a shipment that will likely make it before Christmas, but probably shortly after Christmas or early January, I would think that the boat would be there. But you know what? People sometimes are shipping stuff back home, or they've acquired some stuff here and they need to unload some of that. Go ahead, folks, and you know, send your things, send your shipments off. It's a hell of a deal, I must tell you. So I would definitely encourage you to do so. So I'm going to try to pull up a little video here about the boxes because it's such a good deal. All right. Miss Morna says, God knows my best friend. They're coming to see you soon. Good luck. Keep safe. Miss Vernita, I'm going to reach out to the HSA on your behalf, and I'll let you know. Miss Irvlin's gone to Zoom funeral. What a day we live in, right? Where Zoom funerals are now the norm. Jaron has tagged me in a post. I'll try to find it. I realize that sometimes Facebook doesn't actually give you notifications that you've been tagged. Like, you kind of have to really search for it, which is annoying because that's the whole purpose of a tag, right? Wee wants to know any news about the vaccine for 5 to 11 years old. Her granddaughter is crying to get hers, saying, why is it taking so long? So again, that is dependent on the UK. So, sorry, I think I've clicked on the wrong banner here. Sorry about that, Miss Lucille. Yeah, so the UK will be the ones that once they authorize it, then we should get it shortly thereafter.
Magandang araw po mga kababayan, Joy Anglin po. Nabili na po ba ninyo ang dish pack ng Miracle Brokers? Up to 200 pounds kaya pong ilagay dito. Halina po kayo, Christmas na sa Pilipinas, tamang-tama po para sa mga ate at kuya. Halina po kayo dito sa Miracle Brokers. Miski ano, pwede pong ilagay dito sa box, pero lang po ang jowa nyo.
Contact us at 949-5989 or email us at info@miraclebrokers.
So Carol says that the health minister in the UK says that they're not in a rush to approve vaccines for the 5 to 11-year-olds. They need more data. I think the US is obviously taking a very different position. So I suppose we'll have to wait and see. Now, comment coming in is about the census. So someone thanked me for sharing that. And they were saying that that there are a lot of people who are refusing to do the census and that the government really needs the information. So census workers are being given a hard time. Now, listen, there is a potential that some people are feeling, well, I don't want somebody to come in my house to do the census. There are other options, I understand. You can actually stay outside and do it in fresh air. You can actually be given a phone number of the census workers as well, so that they can do it over the phone. I mean, they don't like to do it that way because I think there's a reason why, they do the house-to-house visits. But, in these times, you do what you got to do, folks. So participate, don't be one of those people who's refusing to participate because you think people are trying to be up in your business. That's not what this is about. This is about trying to get good, accurate information for the government to be able to, implement programs and plans around us. And, Carol says, that's right. They're just trying to do their job. So please participate. I don't even know why someone would not participate. That's crazy to me. And be nice to the census workers. I mean, they really are just doing their jobs. Oh, yeah. What a mess. There are times when I don't know what else to say. So I'm always like, well, a mess. Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Anything else on the radar for today? So I'm hoping today's Tuesday. I'm hoping to get a bit of information by way of an update on that lateral flow test lawsuit. Now, I haven't talked about it yet because I am waiting on some additional tidbits. So we had put in an FOI request over a week ago. We were told that it would be expedited given the sort of significant nature of what it is. And so as soon as we have that information, we can, you and I can go through all of the details and see exactly what happened. So the allegation is, child, my hair is looking a little bit crazy today. The allegation is that, the government and a particular ministry, the finance ministry, pulled a purchase order from a local vendor and gave it to an overseas company, and that may have been done improperly. And now the local vendor is suing for either full performance, in other words, you order it and you pay me, of the contract, or I don't know what the other remedy would be, or just pay them, which, I mean, you wouldn't pay somebody for something you don't get. So I guess they want full performance, right? So they're happy to deliver the goods. So we're trying to get more information on that. And as soon as we have the FOI, we can kind of then go through the details. Because like I always tell y'all, the devil is in the details. And it's easy sometimes to sit here with a particular position on something. And we've done it, sometimes to our own detriment. We don't have all the details. And so that becomes a bit of a problem. So who's going to pay Mr. Marin for him ordering all the vaccine? That was our special minister ordering all the vaccine. So it's not the vaccine, it's a lateral flow test. And well, the government's going to have to probably end up paying if he's legally right. It does seem like a bit of maybe an open and shut case, but like I said, I'm waiting for us to get the details of what transpired. You need to understand the time frame of what happened, because there are several versions of the story that are floating around there. So Nellie says to give her a call after the show. Not a problem. Yeah, Maria, it's a bit of a strange situation, and we definitely need to find out how this decision was made. And there are protocols when you are government that you have to follow in terms of purchase order and that sort of thing. Even when you do business with government. Now, I don't know all the government rules, you see. So this is where even when you do business with government, you need to be in a position to make sure that the rules are followed. But we as vendors, as a potential vendor, you rely on the government agencies and departments to know what the government rules are. And then they tell you what you need to do in order to follow the rules, right? So that's how it works. The rule makers are the ones who should know the rules, and then they tell you how it works. It's a tricky situation. I will be completely honest with you that if the procedure is self-explanatory in the procurement law, then there should be no mixing of what should happen. Like procedurally, it should be like, okay, this is what it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But we'll get all those details and see exactly what is what in short order. So, yep. It wouldn't be a good thing if there was any political interference, because people don't like to think that that's happening, because then, you gotta have certainty. I say this all the time as a business owner. You don't do business in a place where you don't know what the rules are. I mean, where everybody's happy, not everybody, but those of us who follow the rules are happy to follow the rules once you know what the rules are. But the rules can't change. One week it's this, next week it's that. That creates uncertainty in business, and that is a very uncomfortable position for people to be in. So, yeah, certainty is a good thing. Like, if this is the procedure, this is how we're going to do it every single time. It's like when you go and apply for a business license, if you didn't know what was required and they were all over the place from each year to each year, you'd be like, huh? So certainty in business is a requirement, and it's a legal requirement as far as I'm concerned. That's why you have laws and, different regulations and stuff that give you that degree of certainty. Like, this is what the requirement is. Same thing with the law. If the law was like, okay, we're going to apply one set of rules to one person when you go to court, and then another person gets another set of rules. It's like, based on what? I mean, at what point would there be, it would be like, it's because this person has blue hair and you like them. This person has red hair and you don't like that. Like, you can't operate in a world of uncertainty, particularly when it comes to business. All right, good folks. I think that's all I've got for you. I'm just doing a quick look at any of the international news to see if there's anything that we need to be keeping an eye on for you. There's always stuff that's going on in the world, of course. And Britney Spears and celebrity news out of America. She is now completely out of her, what's it called? Her conservatorism or whatever, conservatorship. So lucky for her, that is now a thing of the past. 13 years it lasted for, which is crazy when you think about it. But her dad and her family members seem like they were taking advantage of her too. There's a lot of stories swirling around this. There's been a couple documentaries that have been done about how they took advantage of her just to keep the money flowing in their department or their direction, without, any recourse for her at that time. And there was a public outcry to free Britney. And finally, the court started to listen after finding in favor of the father for so long. And as a result of that, now she's got her freedom back. Unbelievable. Yeah, quite crazy. So it is what it is. Quite unfortunate situation. We'll keep an eye on that for you. We don't do a whole lot of celebrity news in here because we normally don't have a lot of time. Vanessa Bryant, here's another celebrity news flash for you. She is suing, as you guys know, the Los Angeles, I think, fire department or whatever, in the crash of her husband, because photos and stuff like that leaked from that crash site. And she has now, in that lawsuit, handed over her therapy files in that civil lawsuit, which is quite interesting, because I'm sure they're going to show how traumatized she was by that whole situation and by having those photos leaked to the media and others. So, yeah. All right. And a bit of odd news. More than 500 people have been hospitalized from scorpion stings after a storm in Egypt. Who knew? Thank you, Miss Maria Soka Phillips. Nelly, I shall give you a call. And everybody else for tuning in this morning. We appreciate the love and support. It is Tuesday. I would say get out there and get some work done. I'll be, doing some work right here in front of the computer, probably most of the day. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. And God's willing, I will see you guys tomorrow. Now, make sure you have the vaccine schedule in case you need it. Cayman Bay today. Tomorrow is going to be Cayman Bay for half a day, Bordentown Public Clinic, and then on the sister islands at the Ashton Ruddy Center. We're going to get this up on the social media pages as well for all of you to have access to this. Good morning, Paul, joining us from Bermuda. It's always nice to see you here. And you guys have an absolutely blessed and beautiful day. And we will see you back tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.